Today I fudged up by giving some extra effort in the bedroom, and my wife ended up in hospital because of it. I need to begin with a little background into my wife's health. She has a myriad of different issues, the biggest being schizoaffective disorder, a defective kidney which causes cyclical vomiting which puts her in hospital a lot, tics, and tremors. She manages day to day and has a good support network. I look after her to the best of my ability and always try to remain calm in a situation on the bad days. We've been together since we met in college nearly 16 years ago, and she is my best friend and one hell of a good wife. Enough of the winch, onto the tale. It's half-term currently, and I'm on a week's holiday from work, spending it at home, generally chilling out. The kid's been around a lot, not being able to hang out with his friends, what with the vid and everything, and as a result my wife and I haven't had a lot of alone time. My father-in-law offered to take the kid out for the day, and we thought, awesome, day to ourselves. We had some breakfast, took the doggo on a nice walk, well, nice until it started pissing it down, and spent the day playing Xbox and chatting. Utter bliss. Now in the morning I noticed my wife had put on some sexy black lacy underwear. Gotta admit I was thinking about it all day. After lunch I asked if she would like to join me in the boudoir for a little afternoon delight, as we had the place to ourselves. My neighbor who lives in the flat below ours was out at work. We have thin walls and creaky floorboards, so we usually have to try and be quiet when it's sexy time. So we thought this time we can really let rip. We like a lot of foreplay and we're having a good old time. My wife looks sexier than ever and I am as excited as a very exciting thing and am very worked up. I'd been thinking about her all day and I knew I was going to blow after a single thrust. I didn't want this to be over in a flash as we haven't had a lot of opportunities to really go at it in a while. As I thought I'd go in once and the vinegar strokes hit. I'm usually a one and done guy. I'm not as young as I used to be, but damn it, I was going to give my wife the banging of a lifetime. I pull out, look my wife in the eye, grab my little sailor and splooge right on her belly before grabbing her ankles and jamming him back in before the wind drops out the sails and never breaking eye contact. She's surprised. I'm surprised. We're having the time of our lives. I spin her over and stand next to the bed with her on her knees on the bed. Grab her hair and give it my all. Words are spoken that would make an 80-year-old hooker blush. I'm close to a heart attack, and that's when it happens. She has a seizure. At first I just thought she was spent. She sort of went limp and flopped the side. I'm stood there proud as punch, thinking I've finally satisfied her like never before, quietly dreading that she'll expect this again when I know this was my magnum opus. My perfect performance never to be repeated. When I notice her arms and legs are twitching, my hardiness dropped away immediately and I rushed into caregiver mode. Many a night I've been woken up due an emergency hospital visit, but I've never seen this. Her skin had turned red and she was sweating profusely. Her breathing was shallow and uneven, and by looking at her eyes she was clearly not there. Not rolled back but diluted and staring off at nothing. I get her away from the edge of the bed so she doesn't fall off and try to get her to wake up. After what must have been only a minute, but felt like an hour, she begins to stop twitching and regains consciousness. After coming to, she slowly moves into a more comfortable position but says she can't move her neck and feels sick. I get her comfy and fetch a Bucastum for the nausea. We decide the best course of action is to call 111, non-emergency line in the UK. They go through the usual questions with us, listing off her long line of medical conditions, and they ask what happened. I described the suspected seizure, not the events leading up to it, and they confirmed it did indeed sound like a seizure, so we should get up to A&E. They could send a paramedic, but it could be 2 to 4 hours until one is free. No bother, we'll call my brother-in-law who is a nurse and is not far away. We get dressed, load up all her meds for the doc to check over in case a combination of her pills was the cause, and bro-in-law arrives, checks her over and drives us to A&E. Thankfully, he also didn't ask us what we were doing before the seizure, or that would have been one awkward as fudge journey. He drops us at the door and drives off to pick his wife up from work, but says he'll be free in a couple of hours if we need picking up later. At the door to A&E, they have a healthcare assistant to screen people for the 2020 event. He asks us a few questions and we describe the seizure. Then he asks the question we were dreading. What were you doing before the seizure? I try and fail to contain a giggle. My wife says, doing what couples do when they have an empty house for the first time in weeks. There is a beat or two. The fella looks at me and I know he is smiling behind that mask, and he says, ever so cheekily, did you crush her? Now it is important to note my wife is 5 foot nothing and I am a 6 foot Adonis of the armchair, big scruffy beard and big cuddly tummy. I found this remark hilarious. My wife looked at the floor, but I knew she has the biggest grin on her face. I looked him dead in the eye and replied, nah, I was behind her. We all had a good laugh. A moment was shared, then we moved on. Care guy tells my wife to take a seat. Big man. Here, can book her in and then we'll have to leave. Understandable due to the restrictions. Don't want people in the hospital who don't need to be there. So I book her in and head outside to call a taxi and get home before Granddad drops the boy off. Bollocks, I've left my wallet at home, and I'm left with no choice but to walk home in the pouring rain, which takes me nearly an hour at a brisk pace. Wife is home after 4 hours in A&E with instructions to keep an eye on her and to make an appointment at the seizure clinic. Bit wobbly, but she is doing okay, cackling away on the phone like a harpy to her sister as she tells her the story of how she ended up in hospital. Never thought I'd have a story to post here. Hope y'all enjoyed it. TL. DR gave my wife the banging of a lifetime and sent her to the hospital. Relevant comments. Commenter. Is this British humor, or actually that's how they have cuddles? OP. Only on special occasions, like the Queen's birthday or St. Swithin's Day. Commenter. Wait, you're saying me that all British couples have the most brutal cuddles when it's the Queen's birthday? You are truly one of the more stranger things. Update 1. Hi all, it's the Armchair Adonis with an update to my little tale. First off, thank you for everyone's comments on my original post. Really meant a lot to us and has given us a good laugh. Past month has been stressful for us both, but we are out the other side now, or at least on a road to recovery. So after the wild events of my last post, my wife was sent home with some meds. At the time, they were concerned by the amount of CT scans my wife had had and didn't want to run another. If only they had done one, it would have saved us weeks of pain and stress. For 4 weeks since the seizure, she had several severe migraine attacks, twice waking up screaming and vomiting with the pain, and back in A&E twice. Both times they got the pain and the sickness under control, and the same doctor sent her home both times with meds after refusing to do any more tests. The anxiety was unbearable. We were both in a constant state of alert waiting for the next attack. During this period, she felt well enough to have us time once. We took it slow, but when she started to approach the station to Pleasure Town, she went red and had a glazed look on her face, and I instantly thought, I've done it again, and went limp halfway through my payoff. It was just her enjoying herself, but the panic set in with me as I have been a nervous wreck since the first seizure, in a state of alert, just waiting for the next one. 2 Sundays ago, the wife gets out of bed and heads to the bathroom, ready to make us a nice spot of brekkie and let me have a lie in. As soon as she parks on the porcelain, she screams in pain. I spring out of bed ready to take action, and I find her on the bathroom floor, kecks round her ankles, red and sweating and recreating a certain alleyway scene from Team America. I clean her up, get her comfy on the sofa with a bucket and some ondansetron, and we call 111 cause this looks bad. They tell us a doc will call us back soon. For 5 hours we wait. She is in pain and the anti-sickness is doing nothing. When the doc does call, she says she is prescribing some more pain meds and don't go to A&E. I made a judgment that she is in no state to stay home and has to go to hospital. She looks like she is going to die and needs urgent medical attention. Father-in-law happens to swing by to see how she is doing and immediately says, I'm taking her to hospital. After taking one look at her, wife gets to A&E and after an hour's wait, the same DR from before sees her and says in an annoyed tone, What are you doing back here? You've had 38 admittances. She told me she felt like he was accusing her of being some junkie looking for meds. She tells him something is seriously wrong and he dismisses her with a wave of his hand. Just take your pills and go home. I'm furious when she calls me and tells me this. I tell her to get a second opinion and thank whatever deity you pray to that she did, as the next doctor takes her seriously and was very annoyed at the first guy for his attitude. She can obviously see that my wife is in pain and orders her a CT scan. Welp, the scan revealed a brain bleed. It is recommended that she is urgently transferred to King's Hospital in London at 3 a.m., where further scans Monday morning reveal an aneurysm, and she is immediately taken into surgery. The wonderful doctor treating her explained the procedure over the phone to me, where they go in through a vein near the groin and insert bundles of platinum fibers in the aneurysm to stop it filling up again. He explained that this was most likely caused by her hypermobility, which has made her veins stretchy and thus created the bubble. As he is explaining this to me, I am holding back tears, both from worry for my wife and elation that we finally have an answer. To cut this short, surgery goes well, and after a week of bed rest in hospital where I can't see her due to COVID restrictions and having to work while looking after the boy, who has been a little trooper, but I can tell it was getting to him, and El Doggo, she finally came home last night. She will have headaches for the next couple of months and has to take meds that stop her veins spasming every 4 hours, which means waking up at 3 a.m. every night for 2 weeks to get a highly sedated lady to take a pill. Needless to say, a strongly worded letter of official complaint is being written about the original DR who refused to take her seriously. Sorry this post isn't as entertaining as my first one, but I am just burnt out after the past week of worry and tears, but I am beyond grateful for the amazing staff at King's for quite probably saving my wife's life. She could have had a burst aneurysm at any time and she'd be gone. Doesn't bear thinking about. She's happy to be home. I'm happy she's home. Dog pissed the carpet with excitement when she came home last night. Edit. Thank you so much to everyone for your outpouring of support. My wife and I really appreciate it. We've never heard of EDS before, but we'll be bringing it up on the next checkup. My wife is worried her GP won't listen and fob off her worries, but I have found an EDS info and support group online to help her, and she is currently reading up on it. Thank y'all again, and we will keep you updated if we decide to take action against the fudger who kept dismissing her. TLDR, my wife had a seizure 4 weeks ago, thought it was due to my awesome bedroom prowess. Hospital refused to do a scan. After we stood our ground, it was revealed she had an aneurysm caused by hypermobility. Could have killed her at any point. Update 2 Hi all. Back again. Our medical misadventures apparently aren't done with us yet. For those following along, you know that my wife's health journey has been something out of a Kafka novel, with aneurysms, stubborn doctors, and a little too much bedroom excitement. First off, the wife has been healing nicely since her aneurysm surgery. She's been on her meds, and we've got the whole 3 a.m. pill routine down to a science. It's almost romantic in a dark, bleary-eyed sort of way. Her headaches have been a little less intense, and I was beginning to think, maybe, just maybe, we're catching a break. Oh, silly me. About 2 weeks ago, the wife had a scheduled follow-up. She's feeling all right, so we're going in mostly for routine stuff, but with our list of questions because, well, we've learned the hard way not to leave anything to chance. We arrive at the clinic, and the nurse takes her blood pressure. Suddenly, she looks up and goes, that's a bit high. Let's try again. They try 3 times, each number scarier than the last, and she gets whisked away to see the doctor, who recommends an urgent MRI, just to be safe. Not exactly confidence-inspiring language from a guy holding my wife's medical file like it's cursed. So we head to get the MRI, and I'm left in the waiting room, scrolling Reddit to pass the time, which somehow feels both absurd and perfectly fitting. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the doctor comes out with that look, the one that says, "Buckle up, pal." He explains that the MRI showed some irregularities. Turns out, she has something called arterial dissections in her neck. Google it if you want, but the gist is, it's bad news for her blood vessels. The kicker? The doc says it's likely related to her hypermobility syndrome and the aneurysm. Like her body just decided, let's make his life interesting. To top it off, they said her condition means no strenuous activity, which we all know is doc code for there goes your love life. We head home feeling a strange mix of relieved and horrified. Relieved because we caught this one before it exploded like a poorly timed firework. Horrified because it just feels endless. We're in survival mode, taking it day by day, grateful for every relatively normal moment. Our lives have become one long health saga, and now we're here, clinging to whatever silver lining we can find. She's home, and we're together. And even though our alone time now comes with a mile-long list of precautions, which includes absolutely no thrilling bedroom antics, we're laughing through it. It's our thing, I guess. Update 3. Since my last post, things had settled into a strange normal. My wife and I were navigating her recovery like a well-oiled machine. The 3 a.m. pill runs, the check-ins, the constant hovering over her like an overly paranoid mother hen. It wasn't glamorous, but we made it work. We even found some humor in it, cracking jokes about how we were clearly just one calamity away from starring in a Netflix series. Then, last week, things took a turn. My wife started complaining of neck pain, this sharp, relentless ache that wouldn't ease up, no matter how many meds she took or how she tried to rest. Now, she's not one to sound alarms easily, so when she finally said, "I think we need to go to A&E," I knew we were in deep. So off we went, in the middle of the night, to our old haunt, the hospital waiting room. After the usual poking and prodding, they ordered an emergency angiogram. I barely understood half of what they were telling me, but from the looks on their faces, I got the gist. Whatever was happening in my wife's neck wasn't good. We were sitting in silence, our hands locked together in that iron grip you get when there's nothing left to do but hang on. And that's when the doctor walked in, holding a scan that looked like a roadmap to hell. Turns out, the aneurysm they thought they'd fixed had rebled. It was small, thank God, but the arterial dissections in her neck were pressing on a nerve and causing insane pressure spikes in her head. In short, her blood vessels were staging a mutiny. They didn't mince words this time. She needed another surgery now. We signed the waivers and kissed each other goodbye, and they wheeled her off to surgery. That was one of the longest nights of my life. I sat in that waiting room, alone, running every possible scenario through my head, from her coming out just fine to, well, I tried not to think about the alternative. I won't lie. At one point, I cracked and called my father-in-law, who came and sat with me until the sun rose. At around 8 a.m., the surgeon finally walked out, exhausted but smiling. She's okay, he said. We managed to stabilize the bleed, and we've put in stents to reinforce her arteries. He explained in medical jargon I barely grasped, but all I needed to hear was that she'd pulled through. She was alive. We were alive. When I saw her in recovery, she looked at me, groggy and fragile, and muttered, "Told you I'd stick around to keep you in line." We laughed, and then we cried, and for a moment, it was just us, invincible in the face of everything we'd gone through.